I was trying to find some good SEO podcasts actually, because I want to hear what people are talking about in kind of directions, obviously, like with AEO and things are going in.
Right.
And this one podcast that I used to listen to a few years ago is now churning out AI generated episodes. But I could tell instantly.
Businesses could be quite disheartened if their YouTube videos only got 1,000 watches. But I think it's really important to think in terms of, well, who do you want watching your video? Who can benefit from watching it and working with you if they do watch it? You know, that's the people that you need to watch it, and those numbers might be very low.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Demand Decoded. Dan here with Phil, and 2026 is just around the corner and we are placing some bets in this episode. We did a similar thing last year which people seem to really enjoy, which is kind of talking through our top channel suggestions for the year to come and explain what we think about each and why they are in our kind of selection and where we're taking, you know, some big bets next year. So we're going to run through 3 core channels that we think are really going to perform well in 2026.
Yeah, the places where the biggest opportunities, you know, compared to the cost or the effort, you know, that exist in the future, where you've got the greatest chance to have an outsized impact if you're an early adopter, a first mover, and generate, you know, really significant results that might be a lot harder to gain in other places that are either more saturated or better understood. And it's a really exciting year in that regard.
Oh yeah. And it's important to say these aren't just recommendations for what we think. This is actually what we're doing next year as well. So if you are interested in hearing what we plan for next year and the 3 channels we're really betting on, then we'll get into that. Before we get into the podcast today, here's a quick word from our sponsors, HubSpot. Think about listening to this podcast right now. You're probably multitasking and catching 70, maybe 80% of it. Now flip that and imagine only catching 20%. That'd be pretty crazy, right? Yet most businesses only use 20% of their data. All the important details in call logs, emails, and chats just left floating in digital space. HubSpot gives you access to those insights to help your business grow, because when you know more, you grow more. Visit HubSpot.com to get the full picture today. Shall we start with number 3? We'll obviously have to work backwards in this.
Oh, we're going back. We're going to
have to go 3. We'll have to go 3, 2, 1.
Okay, do it.
Okay, number 3. We have events. And, I don't know what we put in our list last year, actually, but I think events was in there. And events are at number 3 for us. And events are a funny one, right? Because when we came out of like the pandemic and COVID, everyone had kind of cut off events from their budget. And events have made this revival in the last couple of years. And I think have seen so much value from creative thinking behind events. Not necessarily your big trade show events, but actually how you maximize the impact and the relationships you can build with your customers and your audience. And events are a key way to build those quickly and instantly.
Yeah, absolutely. Pre-COVID, events were in a bit of a rut, I think, perception-wise, reputation-wise. And that's because, so many had, thought of events as extremely high-cost conventions or conferences or exhibitions where you spent a huge amount to have a stand and you met a lot of people, but you couldn't capture it, translate it, or turn it into anything. COVID, the years that have intervened, have been a really good shake-up for event thinking. And although these opportunities already existed, I think people are much more aware of the variety of approaches they can take to events, the range of sizes, the formats, the platforms, and how they can align them better to what attendees want and need and what they need as a business out of it. So that's helped, I think, to reinvigorate the event area. But of course, now comes along AI, and we know that AI is going to be creating a lot of the content we read, might even start creating some of the content we hear and see. And we're okay with it, but it's driving a desire to maintain or re-obtain authentic human connection, and so events are again getting a bit of a resurgence out of a desire to go from that sort of very effective AI content creation and education piece into real conversations with real people.
Yeah, just got me thinking on the podcast front, which is AI is now like consuming that space as well with AI voices. Yes. I actually I was trying to find some good SEO podcasts actually, because I want to hear what people are talking about in kind of directions, obviously like with AEO and things are going in.
Right.
And this one podcast that I used to listen to a few years ago is now churning out AI generated episodes. But I could tell instantly. I could literally tell within the first 10 seconds. I was like, oh, this is flowing a bit too neatly. There's no mistakes in there. There's like no laughter. There's like, as soon as one person stops talking, the next one starts immediately. There's no pause. There's no anything. I was like, you know what? I don't know if I can actually listen to this.
So you could detect that immediately.
Yes.
And in that moment, you know, you chose or determined that you weren't open to that, but that may change.
I think it can, yeah.
And I think, you know, it's crazy to say that, you know, AI is not welcome in any particular space or won't take off in any particular space. But there's room for humans and AI in marketing, particularly in podcasts. You know, you've mentioned there. I think there are certain use cases I think where AI podcasts could be very, very effective, and yet there will, I think, for a long time be a great deal of desire to hear authentic humans, you know, discuss topics with passion and enthusiasm and make mistakes, and it compounds as more and more content is either created by AI or processed for us by AI. The desire to meet in person, in real life, face to face, online or physically, I think is going to get a boost.
Yeah. For me, like nothing can replace having that buyer, that prospect, that customer in front of you and engaging with them face to face, like within a communication, a two-way communication. In any other marketing medium, whether it be a podcast, a video on LinkedIn, a blog, it's not a conversation. You're talking at them.
Yeah.
You're not talking with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's no other channel that can represent, you know, that relationship you can build other than events.
Within services businesses particularly, you know, the value of those in-person interactions is probably outsized, right? Because chemistry, rapport, you know, the feeling of the people you're going to work with plays such a significant role in decision making. You know, it's important, but perhaps less so in SaaS and in product sales and so on. But you can still, you know, cover a lot of ground very quickly when you're face to face with people, whatever format that takes. So yeah, it might be different across different industries, but I think it's got real value in terms of creating that sense of comfort between people to work together, that develop that chemistry and overcome obstacles just really rapidly, because it's authenticity carries its own weight. You know, we're human creatures and we still want to interact with one another socially as we go about our lives and our work.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I do want to mention with events. One is measurement, but I'll save that. Mm-hmm. The other thing is thinking about how we invest in events, because they are expensive, especially, you know, trade show booths, etc. Are like, it's expensive to have any kind of footprint there. But when you start considering the partners you can work with, and most businesses do have a number of partners they're already working with that serve the same audience, and you start thinking creatively about, okay, how can I bring this great group of businesses and people together to serve an audience really well? Okay, well, I've just halved my event budget, my event cost, you know, in that. Or I don't have an event cost because the partners and sponsorship money is covering everything. Like, these are possibilities. And, you know, I speak to a lot of marketers that are absolutely crushing events on tiny, tiny budgets because they secure such great sponsorship.
Right. Yeah.
And I would encourage people to, you know, think about the opportunities.
Yeah, no harm in doing that and creating synergy between partners and improving ROI through cost sharing, reduced cost. I think it's also really worthwhile people thinking about how small they can go with their events. You know, an effective event can be very much in the sort of ABM vein, a round table, a breakfast, a meal with people who are in your pipeline, people who are customers already. You know, it isn't just meeting people cold on a conference hall floor or anything like it.
Yeah.
There's a real broad array of things that you can do that can help you to optimize what you invest, maximize your ROI and measurability as well. And yeah, partnering up is a great way to improve that even further.
Yeah. Measurement is the last thing I want to touch on when it comes to events, because, you know, for the longest time, and I've been in organizations that do exactly this. We go to an event, we get the list of leads that we either scanned or captured through some sort of method, and we measure ROI directly off of that lead list. And like, we just can't go about marketing measurement in that way for any channel. Right. There is a benefit of looking through that lens, potentially, to see the immediate ROI from an event, but we also have to take into account the big picture of marketing investments holistically, like how one channel impacts another channel, how somebody could see us at an event and then in 3 months' time they see us in an AEO result, they recognize our brand name, so are immediately more drawn to like us and to click on our website. Like the impact of one investment can dramatically increase another. And as long as you can maintain some sort of like brand presence and mind share amongst this audience, they might come back to you in 12, 18 months' time when they're actually in market to buy.
Yeah.
Like, most of your event audience will not be in market to buy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can, obviously that presents a challenge for marketers because, you know, when you talk about the lasting brand impact of an event, you're essentially removing the measurability from the investment.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, well, how much investment would I put into that area? Obviously, it's a marketer's job to take a budget available and distribute it in places they feel, you know, makes the most sense, the most sound investments. But I also think that you can improve your outlook on this if you shift from, as we did with our events, from the lead gen mentality to the demand gen mentality. So if you essentially sort of take your events and move away from trying to capture as many names or as many cards or as many contacts from that event as possible, and using that as your measure of success, you can say, actually, we're going to build this event experience around creating real high intent inquiries, and we're going to measure that part of it, and we're consciously doing it as a branding exercise. But in order to fund that branding exercise, we've got this much pipeline.
Yeah.
You know, that's a great place to be in. And that, I mean, I'm surprised CFOs don't crush certain event strategies when they review the ROI on the cost versus the leads that come through and the lack of conversion off the back of them. You know, marketers must be doing a really good job of sort of convincing CFOs to carry on with that sort of thing. But if you produce real pipeline because you optimize the experience and the event for people who really need what you want, what you have, then you're in a much better place to afford the lasting brand impact that event also creates.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, there's an extra reason why CFOs aren't crushing things. It's because the people who go to events see the value firsthand of the relationships, of the conversations, of the insights you get, of the lasting impact it can have. You see someone like the next year at an event, for example, and it's like, you know, that relationship has remained strong. CFOs don't see that, but like, that's a situation where like marketing and sales can have a really strong relationship and view and outlook on something, and that's rare sometimes.
Yeah. Unit economics of events is a tricky one.
Yeah.
And I think your CFO will be pleased if you bring real revenue off the back of an investment strategy, whilst you know that you're building the pipeline of the future at the same time. So yeah, that applies probably to the bigger investments more so than the smaller investments that you might make. But
like if you take a blended ROI across everything, and you're seeing improvements, like that will show you that everything is connected yet disconnected.
Exactly. I mean, it's all one budget to create one outcome, and if you look over an appropriate time window and your direction of travel is correct, then you can apply your sort of logic and thinking to what's driving that and what makes sense. So absolutely, that longer view is imperative in marketing, to not forego really high impact activities and efforts that won't translate into immediate measurable ROI.
Yeah, I think for events, we haven't touched on anything virtual yet, but this is mainly in person.
Yeah,
I think.
and I think that is what we're talking about for the most part. Virtual, can play a role. It's been around for a long time. I think most people would agree that no matter how well-intentioned, a virtual event lacks something.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same degree of connection, of excitement that comes with the real world. So by all means, have them in your marketing schedule. I think, think carefully about what the outcome you're trying to drive with a virtual event is and optimize for it. But yeah, like in-person events have an added value that's becoming more and more desirable as AI becomes more and more prevalent in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, I think when I think of virtual events and like webinar style things, to me that's just content. That's content creation.
Yeah, you don't even really need to do that live.
Yeah.
To get what you need out of it.
You can do it live if you want a live audience and some questions, but for me that is just creating content for long-term value rather than that immediate hit.
By events we mean physical, in person.
YouTube, number 2.
Absolutely.
We've spoken about YouTube a bit here and there on the podcast. I'm a huge advocate of YouTube when it comes to B2B, and I think there have been some key shifts recently in informational content, in saturation of channels that just elevate YouTube as an opportunity for a lot of B2B companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, marketers are typically quite quick to pile onto an effective channel and saturate them. Yeah. And we've seen saturation in search of old. We've seen saturating within social channels. YouTube remains a little bit sort of out there as a channel that hasn't yet been totally, in terms of B2B marketers, like embraced, adopted, and saturated. Yeah. Meaning there's a delta. There's a potential that if you are able to get into that channel, you again can have a greater impact than the same effort spent elsewhere. There are some perceived barriers to entry, and that's probably what holds some marketers off, right? Because in order to be, the way I think about YouTube is YouTube's the channel, video's the medium, and that they're inseparable. And it's the fact that it's video that is obviously the barrier to some, but that means it's an opportunity to others who are able to get in front of camera, create that video content. YouTube represents a really significant place to generate, an outsized impact in terms of how you're discovered, how people perceive you. We've heard several times that YouTube videos have been key factors in pipeline generation and customer acquisition for us, and we're still pretty early days at it. So really exciting potential there.
And we also don't get tons of views. I think our highest viewed videos have we're in the single digit thousands. So it's not as if we're getting hundreds of thousands of views, nor do we want that, because like our audience and who we can serve, that's not hundreds of thousands of people.
Very true.
That is a select group, of companies that we fit with best.
Yeah. I guess businesses could be quite disheartened if their YouTube videos only got 1,000 watches. But I think it's really important to think in terms of, who do you want watching your video? Who can benefit from watching it and working with you if they do watch it? That's the people that you need to watch it, and those numbers might be very low. The direction we're going in with AI, a driving factor, is that I think a lot of content will get far fewer views. Attention will get distributed across lots and lots of different pieces of content, lots and lots of different channels. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, as long as it's the right views that you can then convert.
Yeah. I mean, it's like website traffic, isn't it? Which is going down for the most part, but quality is increasing.
Yeah, website traffic, pages, articles, passages, videos, podcasts. Yeah, I think they're all being surfaced to buyers in a far more niche and aligned manner to their needs. There's much less concentration on the top performing ones, as to use the old SEO sort of structure. So yeah, there's you don't have to be disheartened if your views are low. It just means that you've got something that appeals to a very specific audience potentially.
Yeah, and one of the other reasons I'm so bullish on YouTube is just because of the separation of informational content from search, and the fact that AI overviews and large language models are just consuming informational search queries that existed before from blog content, from pillar pages, etc. But YouTube is still a way to actually produce that informational content that people actually still consume and connect with your brand. I've spoken about this on a previous episode, that one of the good things about blogging, and there's still potentially some value there, but diminishing for sure, is when somebody viewed your blog on your website, they saw your logo, they saw your website, they potentially explored further. You could retarget them if they accepted cookies, and there would be a connection with your brand. There's no brand connection with a large language model answer when it's just information about a topic. With YouTube, there absolutely is, and there's a bigger connection because you've got a human to human connection there as well, which is a lot deeper than just a logo.
Yeah, absolutely, a lot deeper. And I think as well, the experience, the dwell time, the duration of experience, and the effect of it on just human psychology will be far stronger than skim reading an article. Even if you do get an impression of a brand, it was still pretty small as you whiz down that page to try and see if it contained the information you needed. And really, the opportunity with blogging and SEO content was getting someone to your website, your brand, many times over to build a sufficient sort of brand impression. A YouTube video can do that in one go if you're able to get someone to engage with the content and watch it.
I mean, the pushback and the challenge with marketers will be the effort to create it, and that's why it's not exploited in the same way as blogging was, or LinkedIn even is, because you can just write text posts, or you can come up with some way that doesn't require a subject matter expert to be on camera. That is the challenge for businesses.
Absolutely.
To have a subject matter expert in the business that can be, I saw, it was a life science company I remember speaking about the fact that one company had already done this, called Synthase, ages ago, hired a scientist, basically, PhD in whatever, to be their content creator. And I saw another one hiring for a similar role. It was a content creator role, but they had to have a PhD in some scientific topic. And I was like, they know.
They want to break through that barrier.
Because it's so hard to create content. You'd rely on your product managers, etc. But they have day-to-day jobs, and they might not see this as a priority. And the scale you want to take video creation to might not meet the resource you have in-house. I think it's a good way to go about things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think content creation teams need to embrace video. And there's a huge side benefit to that as well. If you do break through this barrier and you do start to create video content, as we discussed in a previous episode, that is the single most repurposable format of content you can possibly create. So you're actually doing yourself a massive favor if you create video content for YouTube, because of the ways that you can distribute it and repurpose it for a whole plethora of different applications, different channels, different formats, different parts of the buying journey. So not only will you enable yourself to take advantage of this opportunity that YouTube presents as a channel, it opens up just so many doors for content creation, across your go-to-market. So it's definitely worth figuring out how you get to the point where you can be regularly creating video content and who you need to do it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of businesses and industries have the opportunity to be very early movers for YouTube compared to other channels. For us, it's always a bit harder, right, when you market to marketers, because marketing to marketers means marketing very early. And it's
as close to the edge as you can.
It's hard to stay at the forefront of things immediately, because the marketing people are the ones evolving, right? And marketing to the other evolvers, if you get what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
It's, you really have to stay at the forefront of things. Other industries where marketers aren't the economic buyer lag behind.
Absolutely. Meaning there's massive potential.
Yeah.
And it's still early for some.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. So, yeah, that was YouTube at number 2. Most businesses don't realize just how much their website is holding them back. VDOT were generating strong demand, but their site just wasn't converting it. We rebuilt their site with their buyers in mind, sharpened the user experience, and aligned it to their goals. And within 90 days after launch, high intent conversions increased by 100%, and demo requests rose by 14%. That's what happens when your website finally works as hard as your marketing. If you think your website might be holding you back, let's start the conversation at blendb2b.com. If you're enjoying this show, let me recommend another one from the HubSpot podcast network that I personally never miss. Nudge, hosted by Phil Agnew. What I love about Nudge is that it's all about the psychology and science behind human behavior. What makes us take action, form habits, or say yes. And then it shows how those same principles shape great marketing and sales. In one episode, Phil looks at how just 3 words in a text message boosted vaccination rates and may have saved hundreds of lives. That's the endowment effect at work, a tiny psychological nudge creating a huge outcome. Every episode of Nudge is about 20 minutes, fast-paced, no fluff, and packed with ideas you can actually use. Check it out. Nudge is available wherever you get your podcast. Number 1, AEO.
AEO.
There's no surprises there. It was always going to be AEO.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, what an area. Taking off. Huge, exciting. A lot to learn still, but it's where it's going. It's where buyers will do their research in the future.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has to be number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I was checking out some research earlier on usage statistics for large language models, and it's insane to look at ChatGPT's active users. So in January 2023, there were 50. So that was roughly like when it first came out, right? And it started to get some traction. 2023.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Early days, 50 million users. I mean, even that's quite a lot.
I mean, it is the fastest growing thing.
And April 2025, 800 million.
Oh, wow.
So, the growth rate of active users is incredible. And what we need to remember is that the people using this channel, the growth in users, they are our buyers. Absolutely. Or they will be our buyers as it keeps growing.
Yeah. And, just to add to that, I've been pretty shocked at how rapidly our traffic, measurable traffic from chat, bots is growing. And the ability to see that in our reports is fascinating. But it just goes to show that this is becoming the way people research, and your ability to tap into that is I think a huge potential for the future. There's some strange considerations because, of course, AI synthesizes information into answers and responses, and there's in the informational end of that spectrum, there's almost no brand visibility. As you get down to the more commercial, you get degrees more brand visibility, in the form of recommendations and citations and mentions. But I still sort of anticipated that because the LLMs that I use don't do a great job of putting like big URLs and buttons and things in, that people wouldn't navigate directly from that experience to our website. So I've been really surprised actually by how many do that, in addition to the ones that come via other channels. And some tell us that AI or ChatGPT was their source of attribution, others don't, but they make their way to your website somehow. But people are starting to click through straight from ChatGPT, which is amazing to see.
Yeah. I mean, it is going to be the biggest channel for marketers to master going forward. And we are early days. And obviously, we covered this in a bit more detail with Asia Frost from HubSpot on our episode on loop marketing, which was, really interesting to kind of hear some of the things they're doing. And there was 3 categories, right, that she was recommending to think about AEO, and you had
technical,
content,
and external resources. I
That's
think.
it. Yeah, structure came into content. I think.
Right. Okay. Well, anyway, those are our three buckets, aren't they? We're allowed our own: technical, content, and external. And technical is like in SEO days, right? It's table stakes. If you fail at technical, you're never going to maximize your result from the execution of the creative part of that process. And probably the two biggest things to bear in mind there are content structure, in my mind, as in you could put that in content creation, of course, but I think when you think about how pages are laid out, how pages are constructed, there's an impact on what you produce, what you write, or what you create, but there's also impacts on what pages you need and what templates and what modules and so on. And the big thing there is just the passage retrieval element of AI as opposed to the page retrieval element of search. AI looks for the most relevant passages and retrieves them in isolation without the rest of the page content, meaning you need to be thinking both technically and when you create about creating complete whole passages that make sense and stand alone and contain everything that's needed to answer a question. So that drives your thinking. And then at an even deeper level, schema has had a real boost from AI. Schema's been valuable and useful for a long time, but I wouldn't say it's been a critical thing for B2B marketers to get right to succeed in the past, but it's looking more and more important in order to help AI crawlers understand what your site has to offer. So those are probably the two biggest technical areas I think people need to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then you've got the actual creation of content, and
which is a huge area.
Yeah, and I could sit here and say some of the core things we're working on right now. There is an element of being, even in the marketing world, quite early to this, which I feel like we are. I'm seeing some good early signs of success. I do want to hold on to the secret sauce just a little bit for now.
Yeah.
The
specifics, yeah.
But I'm very happy to share the specific details of exactly, what we're doing and trying out and seeing. If you want to DM me on LinkedIn, very happy to share that. But one thing I would encourage is just have a look at, the kind of prompts your buyers would be making, and you can create, something like we did with a persona synthesization project in Claude, for example, where we take a load of buyer research, we take our persona research, transcripts, things like that, and we basically get it to synthesize being that person and the kind of prompts they would ask. We track them. This is the other part, actually, tracking and measurement. Not many people have a tool in place to track the prompts that are being asked, even though we don't know the actual prompt being asked, and that's another thing to consider. But even to have directional views of how things are going, the measurement challenge is something we need to figure out. We've got Scrunch as a tool now. We tried out a few. Scrunch was the one that kind of stood out to us as having the best package overall. So aggregate data and see interesting views. And there are other options out there, like HubSpot just acquired Xfunnel, which is really
massive news. They
huge.
didn't wait. They didn't hang around on that one, did they?
Right? Yeah.
I think one, it's too early anyway to be like hyper specific about recommendations because despite the fact we're seeing signs of success. But I think one thing we can say to people is, one thing that concerned me about like the discourse around AEO was the lack of distinction between informational and commercial in terms of focus. Like, look at the difference between informational answers and commercial answers, and identify where it makes sense for you to invest, because brand visibility within informational answers is negligible. I think it was Peep and who shared information about... No, actually, forgive me, it was Kieran talking about how Zapier is one of the most cited resources across searches in the category, but one of the least frequently mentioned. So like you can be hugely present and hugely visible and hugely successful within informational search, let's call it. And a lot of that is just carryover from being really, really good at it during the SEO era.
Yeah.
But it doesn't net you anything because you're not visible and you're not generating traffic off the back of those I need to get this word right, citations,
Yes.
right, citations. Whereas down in the commercial end of the spectrum, well, one, as a brand, they're much less often mentioned, so they've got a challenge there. But if you are the one mentioned, then your brand is visible, and there's more likelihood you'll generate traffic, and from traffic you can generate pipeline.
Yeah.
So that's probably the thing that I think people can already look carefully at. And when they're taking advice about how to optimize for AEO, like, think about whether that applies universally or it's actually leaning towards the informational, and really question the value of that.
Yeah. We also need to consider the third thing on our list, which is external, what do we call it? External sources, or...
I mean, it's like being referenced, isn't it, externally?
It's the backlink equivalent to AEO. So it's, the big boys referencing you, basically, in your industry. It could be,
Wikipedia, Forbes, certain Reddit chat subreddits. It's digital PR.
Yes,
is not completely incorrect way of thinking about it. Getting your brand, your name into other sources of content that feature in the answers.
There's a really interesting stat from an Ahrefs study that only 12% of AI cited URLs rank in Google's top 10 for the original prompt.
Yeah,
like, that is a very, very small number. And I heard it on a podcast this morning, and it really wound me up that the benefits of SEO also apply to AEO, and that there is some real connection between the two there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This study shows that is not true.
Yeah.
Only 12% of AI cited URLs rank in Google's top 10 for the original prompt.
Yeah.
AI does not retrieve information or rank information in the same way as Google. That needs to be really clear and known.
Yes, exactly. So in the Zapier example, where they're one of the most cited brands, it's from having a massive body of content that's incredibly topic specific. It's irrelevant where that content ranks within Google's index, because AI engines like Google itself and ChatGPT will go as deep as it needs to go in the index to get the most relevant content back. So the brands that have done content marketing at scale have a head start in AEO, but not purely because of their success at ranking that content within Google. Yeah,
and that also makes me think that it's not just the biggest websites that we want to get mentioned in.
Right.
Of course, because of their body of content,
we're seeing them come up regularly.
They come up, again and again.
Yeah.
But being mentioned in smaller websites too that are niche to your industry, there's a lot of benefit there.
Yeah, you can go to the most relevant publication and try and get mentioned within their content, and that might come at slightly less effort, lower cost.
Well, this is what we need to think about, right? External digital PR. I like that, actually. I like that positioning for it. Effort versus reward here is really important to consider.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of misinformation online about how things like this work. But the way I think about it is in terms of a roulette analogy. If you think that the key to your success in AEO is getting a Wikipedia page about your brand, that's like betting everything you've got on 0 or one individual number at the roulette table. The rewards, if it comes up, are high, potentially, quite high, because of the ability for that content to serve you.
Yeah.
But the probability of you pulling that off, of succeeding in doing it, is dramatically lower than if, for example, you bet on red. And by betting on red, you take your same investment and you spread it across all red numbers on the roulette table. The rewards are slightly lower, but your probability is massively up. Now, if you bet on red and black at the same time, your rewards are lower again, but you're completely in control. You win every time. And that's sort of how I think about this. You can create content so efficiently now on your own reconnaissance, under your own steam, that can drive a result and an impact. You've really got to decide whether it makes sense to look at these other opportunities and what the risk reward is, what the effort is going to take, and what the likelihood you'll get it back is. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. AEO, I think, is done that. Yeah, I mean, I would say, honestly, drop me a DM on LinkedIn if you want to see the kinds of things we're testing out and the kinds of things we're seeing. More than happy to share that It is very early to like share a case study almost for that.
Absolutely.
But we'll get there at some point, no doubt, and we'll keep talking about AEO as we learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. Just final thought. We just haven't mentioned the fact that Google still hasn't really put AI mode at the forefront of its experience, but most people are expecting it to do that. I mean, we've seen user growth of ChatGPT grow astronomically. We've seen traffic from chat AI tools grow surprisingly fast. AI overviews have robbed informational pages of most of their traffic, and we still don't even have AI mode as a first user experience. If that change happens, the case for this is just even bigger again.
Yeah, it will happen.
Yeah,
like it. Who knows when? It could be in 2 years. It could be in 5 years. But like, it's going to happen. It will happen. It's going to happen at some point.
Cool.
We've got an honourable mention in here that we can just touch on briefly because it very nearly made the list, and I think it will always make the list to some extent every year on year, and that is the website, but kind of like CRO.
Conversion rate optimization of your website.
Yeah, which is becoming more and more important as traffic is decreasing to websites. Being able to convert visitors is extremely important, and I think it was a stat that Asia shared on the podcast, which is traffic from large language models, ChatGPT maybe specifically, is 3 times more likely to convert into a high intent lead because they are more qualified, better educated, and like more prepared to actually take that leap.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if that stat specifically called out high intent leads, but nevertheless, it's true. Signs show that visitors from AI engines are significantly more likely to convert, and that's a positive and a negative. It's a negative because it means you're getting far fewer visitors, but it's a positive because the ones that are coming are better fit, better educated, more likely to need, want, and benefit from what you offer, and therefore more inclined to convert. But you can still make that harder or make that easier.
Yeah.
And I think broadly, B2B websites are neglected in terms of optimization. I think that marketers really struggle because of divided ownership, responsibility, priorities, stakeholders, costs, all sorts of factors. I mean, they kind of like build a website, probably experience some pain while they do it, and then like it just kind of sits there while they try to optimize the heck out of all the channels that drive people there. And you just don't hear a huge amount of conversation about how to make the website convert better.
Yeah.
But now it's critical. We're going to get so many fewer visitors. We can't waste the ones we get.
Yeah.
We can't just tolerate, massive amounts of drop off and waste from that experience and that process. We've got to get back in front of that and optimize for converting those people into a pipeline. And I'm excited about it because it's always been an area that I've been fascinated by, but it's been hard to build the sort of enthusiasm and the case externally sometimes to really focus on it. Another factor that I think will AI is ushering in a set of best user-centric behaviors that have always been best practice but have long been neglected, I think. And I think AI will make websites smaller. Ultimately, we don't need heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of content on navigation to convert buyers. Research is taking place in AI. AI is able to find our pages about, what we do and how we do it and who benefits from it and case studies and all that sort of stuff. And actually, what the website needs to have in order to convert someone can be a lot more condensed at the navigational layer. You'll have a big body of content behind it, but websites tended to sort of swell and bloat and grow over time with no connection to how that impacted or improved conversion rate. And I think this will help us wind back on that.
Yeah. And there's a reason why websites is, a core offering of us here at Blend. And it's because, well, you can tell the story better than me probably, but time and time again, we'd see so much investment in marketing, in, some of the things we've mentioned today, events or paid media, driving huge amounts of traffic to a website that is just not converting. Take we've got some great case studies now. VDoc as an example, brilliant brand, like brilliant marketing team, great business and a great product, but their website just like wasn't optimized for the buying experience. It wasn't optimized for finding the crucial information on the buying journey and ultimately converting. Change their website, complete overhaul, 90 days later, 100% increase in conversion rate. Like, this is entirely possible to then get better ROI from your existing marketing budget, like just through changing your website.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of websites over the years, the conversion rates of which are bobbling along at around zero. Like, you know, some businesses come to us with websites that generate nothing, zero in the form of, you know, pipeline or what becomes pipeline. And they might be generating other things, but they don't produce the most important thing, which is the high intent leads that convert to pipeline. And it's largely down to the fact that they've not been built to do it. They've not been optimized around that objective at all. But yeah, like zero or nearly zero is crazy, and it doesn't need to be that way. And hence, in many, many cases, the website's been this massive lever that you can pull and like increase your conversion rate by 100%, 400%, you know. And we're not talking about just conversion rate of all types of contacts. We're not talking about, you know, leads, ebook downloads. We're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about people who want to, you know, engage with your sales process, whatever that is. And those go on to convert to pipeline revenue at such significant rates compared to everything else as well. That's what you need to optimize around now. And many, many businesses, if not most, have a massive opportunity there. You know, when you went from where they are today to where they could be if they apply a conversion rate optimization mindset to the user experience.
Yeah, and we've spoken about conversion rate optimization in more detail in some other episodes. Just checking down here, episode 76 of Demand Decoded on our other podcast, Websites Decoded. It's a topic you've spoken about a few times. So we've got some good you know, like tips and information out there to actually practically apply conversion rate optimization. But, you know, like we don't do a lot of plugging of Blend here, but that is something we are incredible at. So,
indeed, absolutely.
Don't hesitate to ask for any advice on that.
Agreed.
All right. Any closing thoughts or?
No, I think we agree those are where the biggest opportunities lie in the future. That's not to say that businesses should turn off everything else. There are other channels that they will continue to use and need to be part of the marketing mix. But if we look ahead and we see where can the biggest return be created, these are some of the most exciting opportunities we can see today.
Yeah. And, you know, for us, I would say the best channel strategies for you are probably the ones that you can actually do and execute. If you can't, you know, produce YouTube videos for whatever reason, it's not going to be the channel for you. Like, there will be other channels out there that are better for you. These are three that we just see like really having huge value next year. So if you can make them work, we think they'll pay. But, you know, what works for you might be different depending on your circumstance.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite right.
All right, cool. Let's wrap it up there, and we will catch you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
This episode of Demand Decoded was brought to you by Blend. We help B2B technology companies grow through strategic, creative, and technical expertise, bringing you the capabilities you need to drive demand and turn it into real revenue impact for your business. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Demand Decoded on your favorite podcast platform, leave us a quick review, and we'll see you next time with more insight to help you grow.